We'll start the meeting. We're just going to make an adjustment to the agenda. We will start with the election of the chair and then do the introductions. So to start off, I will hold the elections for the chair. Are there any nominations for the chair of the Airport Advisory Committee? Councillor Cressy.
I nominate Aldine.
Mr. Dean, do you accept?
I do accept.
Okay. Any other nominations for the chair of the Airport Advisory Committee?
We can do anybody.
This might be got a silly question, but not knowing who everybody is, who's eligible?
Everybody.
Anyone at
This
the big
table?
table?
Okay.
Okay, last call for nominations for the chair. I close nominations. All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Dean?
So I'm just gonna move then, you guys. To get everybody.
Good.
Okay, well, thank you. So we will go through our introductions. I don't see, oh, there it is. I was looking for the agenda to be adopted, but we'll go through with introductions, and maybe we can start with our staff. Wilma, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself.
Okay, I'm Wilma Harris. I'm assistant, or I am, what am I? Administrative assistant for infrastructure services for Woodlands County.
I'm Brenda Kircher. I'm secretary for Kircher. I'm secretary for Planning Development. I'm here to see how things are working, and I could provide backup for Wilma. Thank you.
I'm Steve Willett. I'm the manager of environmental services and also the airport manager.
I'm Andre Bichon. I'm the Director of Infrastructure, and I'm the accountable executive for CYZU.
Rob McGee, Rotary Wing representative. Works for Sequoia Helicopters.
Hi, I'm Tom Pickard. Oh, it took me. That's why he was bugging me with that. I'm Mayor of Whitecourt. Thank you.
Curtis Brownlee, fixed wing rep. I'm also the treasurer for the Whitecourt Flying Club, and I have a hangar at the airport.
Tara Baker, Town Council.
So I'm Alan Dean. I'm the counselor for Division 3 in Woodlands, and I'm glad to be back on this committee. I was here when the committee was struck, and we went through the exercise of the airport master plan. I see some familiar faces with that, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have accomplished, and look forward to the committee making some more strides. I do also want to send the regrets for Jeremy Wilhelm. He's in Fort St. John, I believe. He got called out to work, and he was going to try and come in by teams, but he's just unable, so he sends his regrets.
Breeden Langto, Whitecourt councillor.
Bruce Prestige, counselor for Woodlands, Division 5, and this is my 5th year on this board.
Brian Lepshinsky, Alberta Agriculture and Forestry. We got the tanker base up at the airport there, and been here since the start of the committee, how many years ago, so.
Yeah, that was, I want to say that was about 2010.
2010, 2011, somewhere there, yeah.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I guess our first item on the agenda then, we've got terms of reference. I'm not sure why that isn't, yes.
Mr. Chairman, election of the vice chair.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Okay, so pardon me. We need to elect a vice chair, and that vice chair can be anybody that sits on the committee. So I'm looking for a nomination. Yeah, I'm looking the same way, Tom.
Sure.
I have Mr. Chair, could I nominate Tara Baker, Counselor for Whitecourt?
Any other nominations? Third call for nominations. Seeing none, we will ask Tara, do you accept the nomination?
Sure, you bet.
Okay, so you are elected. You are Vice Chair. Thank you. And it comes with great gravity. You have to, in fact, I have to leave, so you need to chair this.
Next time.
Okay, now we'll move on to terms of reference then. So you have in front of you a document that outlines terms of reference for a number of committees, but if you scroll through, you'll find the Airport Advisory Committee near the end. I'd ask if anybody has any questions about the terms of reference. I'll give everybody a chance to have a look. As I say, it's near the end, outlined and it's got some green highlighting on it. Andre, while people are having a look, did you want to speak to the terms at all?
Mr. Chairman, I can. So, Woodlands County bylaw number 537-19 was enacted to for the establishment of committees and boards of the council. That includes the Airport Advisory Committee. The purpose of the Airport Advisory Committee is to provide policy advice and recommendations to council on various issues, including providing input on revisions to the airport master plan, airport zone lands for aerospace, and any other aviation-related or complementary commercial venture that is consistent with the airport master plan, economic development and marketing for the airport, recommend revenue-generating ventures, airport transportation services for Woodlands County and region, and anything else that is referred to by council.
Thank you. Question?
Just if we can update, instead of ESRD, agriculture or forestry for terminology there.
As far as members go,
Yeah, just because ESRD is an old name here for, Alberta government, how we like to change our names, department names, so
and
just,
what's the new name?
just put agriculture and forestry until the next election then.
Any other questions or comments about terms of reference? So we have one slight change, and if there are no other questions, then I'd ask for a motion to accept the RFD as information. Ms. Braden?
Yeah, I'll make that motion to accept this information.
The motion on the table, anybody wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried, thank you. And now we'll adopt the agenda. Anybody see anything out of order on the agenda? Seeing none, if I could have a motion to adopt the agenda. Thanks, Mr. Prestich.
Make a motion that we adopt the agenda
As presented.
as presented.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, and item 7.1 is the adoption of the minutes. Trusting everybody's had a chance to look through. I did have one question, and I'm hoping somebody that sat on this committee can help me out with this. So within the minutes, item 4.1, airport lease rate comparison. So it was moved by Town Mayor Marianne Chichak that this committee direct administration to prepare an RFD for the next meeting outlining further airport lease comparison, as well as other municipality mill rates, advantages, disadvantages to changing the lease rates, review of private versus commercial, ground, airside, non-airside, including if serviced as to who has access to water and sewer. When I was looking through the master plan, I saw that lease rate comparison in there. Anybody remember this from last meeting? So I guess what my question is, I saw those lease rate comparisons within the master plan, and yet this motion is asking for a comparison. Andre?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the conversation went that the administration was directed to review the lease rates, tax rates, and what the impacts would be on the airport as far as increasing or decreasing, along with an updated comparison to other regional airports.
Okay, and so that motion, or the administration hasn't prepared that information come back yet?
Not yet, that will be at the next meeting, given this meeting was held just before the election, and then the election and.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, anybody else see anything in the minutes? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept, please?
Motion to accept September 23rd meeting minutes.
Motion on the table, all in favor? And that's carried, thank you. The next item is 8.1, the 2023 Copa National Fly-In. Looks like a pretty interesting event. Anybody have any information they want to share on that? Curtis, can you tell us a little bit about that event?
So COPA stands for Canadian Owners and Pilots Association. So it's guys across Canada that are pilots, have planes, and this is our representation. So they do a Eastern and a Western council meeting, and they alternate between years. So I believe the one that we want to go to is to the Western one in 23. Sorry, that's me. Shh, quiet. They're going to come out if we're selected, or even if they think about coming, they're going to come out, have a look and see what we have to offer, and see what we need to change to be considered. There is a big issue with this right now. Do you want me to bring it up now?
You know what? If you can just hang on for a second, I just lost my internet, so I don't have the RFD in front of me.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so it's in front of me now. So carry on.
So there is a big issue going on with this right now, where there is a COPA member at the Woodlands Airport that is presently suing and being sued with the County of Woodlands. And it would probably break this. They wouldn't want to support this airport if something like this is still happening. So this is definitely has to be resolved.
Okay. And I guess with respect to the RFD, what I see the background gives us an understanding of what the event is.
Yep.
And the RFD is just asking us to accept it as information. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just won the date is January of 2012, so I'm assuming that was just somebody transposed the numbers.
Must be, yeah. Where do you see that?
Where Woodlands County approved perusing the possibility.
Yeah.
The proposed kickoff meeting of January 11th, I'm sure it's just 2021. But that's not my question. I just, noting that because I read it, I'm thinking that can't be right.
Yeah.
So just help me, is this, if this committee recommends this, does it get forward to a tourism? Because I don't see it in our terms of reference as an airport committee that we host these, we promote. So would this go to our ECDev or tourism? Is that if we were to?
Yeah, fair question. I think I'd ask Andre to elaborate on that.
Through the chair, first off, that date should be January 11, 2022, proposed meeting. So essentially what's happening is this was presented to this committee in September. It did go to Woodlands County Council for endorsement. And what's happened since then is a letter with a formal request for partnership was sent to the town of Whitecourt, the Whitecourt Chamber of Commerce, and the local COPA flight to attend this kickoff meeting. And at that point, we will be discussing, preparing a proposal for the COPA fly-in. And at that time, we'll also be discussing other partners that should be involved in this, should we be successful. And as Curtis mentioned, there is the background issue that we are aware of. And that's all gonna depend on whether COPA will back one side or the other. So, but in the meantime, we are proposing to forge ahead.
Okay, so did that answer your question?
Sort of. I think that we'll see where we are on the 11th and see what partners are required, and then I think that January 11th meeting would likely satisfy the question if it's going to be addressed there.
Right.
And that's great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Andre. Any other questions with respect to the proposed fly-in? If there are none, I'd ask for a motion to accept as info.
I'll make a motion that the committee accept the RFD as information.
Motion on the floor. Anybody wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. 8.2 is the 2022 Formula One air races. That sounds pretty exciting. A lot of airplanes racing. Sounds dangerous, but I'm assuming these are time trials?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess there is actually planes racing each other at the same time. I haven't seen it. I'm interested. I don't know how close I want to get to it, but
Any other, can you give us an idea of a flavor for, or do you know what?
I honestly don't know. I can't. It looks like they can go, they do about 250, up to 250 miles an hour. In Reno they were, for the Formula Ones. I don't know if we're getting Formula Ones. Oh yeah, Formula Ones. One thing that we did bring up at the last airport advisory was it was something that was put to the group, and they wanted to wait until the new board was put out, is if there'd be an interest in trying to do stole races at the same time. So these are as fast as you can go, and stoles are as slow as you can go. The stoles are very interesting. There's, I can't think what the acronym is right now.
Short takeoff.
Short takeoff and landing, that's right. And they're pretty cool. So if there is a flavor from the board, I don't even know who to contact to begin with, but I could definitely look into seeing what we could do for that on the same time frame.
Okay, I guess what I would suggest on that is let's go ahead with the RFD.
Okay.
And perhaps you can make a motion after that to explore
Sure.
the possibility of stool.
Okay.
Any other, sorry, question?
Mr. Chair, again, would this be in collaboration with our ECDAV tourism? Because it's outside the terms of reference of our current committee, but certainly something consistent with promoting the airport. Or is it, am I reading the terms wrong?
I'll defer to Andre.
Through the chair, we have an external organizer that is going to be promoting the races here and in Grand Prairie. So the airport itself is not involved to any great amount. We are simply going to be providing a location. They will look after all their advertising, the organizing. We'll simply provide the platform.
And further to that, the question of liability had come up earlier, and they carry their own liability insurance?
That's correct. They provide all their insurance. We are co-insured or additionally insured. And they apply for all the permits to hold this event.
Sure. So Mr. Mayor, I hear what your question is. I think from a holistic approach, if you will, it concerns the airport, it deals with airport matters, so it would fall under this committee's direction. What Andre is telling us is that we have somebody that's going to do all the groundwork, do all the promotion, and make sure everything is in place, and we'll just oversee it and give our stamp of approval. Does that sound accurate?
It does. I should also add that there hasn't been a lot of organizing up till now, but a lot of the organizing is going to be starting in January, and that's when we'll start getting more information. I should also add, this item plus the COPA, the last committee asked that these two items be a standing item on the agenda, so that'll be repeated every meeting with updates.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how will we be kept informed? Okay. Any other questions concerning the areas? So can you just set the scene? Like, what happens with this race?
I just fly plane, man. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
So you've never seen one of these?
No, they run pylons as far as I know.
Okay.
So there's gonna be turn points where, it's just like an oval race, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as I understand.
So they'll go out maybe 2K and then turn and
Probably
come back?
not. You're probably gonna be able to sit there and watch everything.
Okay.
So I would think that if where the grandstands sit on the, I guess it'd be the west side of the airport, they would probably do everything to the south, east, and west, so that you can sit and you can watch everything. So it'd be all over the river, over A&C,
Mm-hmm.
kind of over the highway.
Sounds pretty cool.
And I might be wrong on that, because I thought they said the 3.2 mile race course in Reno. I really don't know what they would do to ours.
Mm-hmm. Andre?
Through the chair, I can tell you that there are 4 planes racing at a time, and they do basically a 3-mile circuit in the area of the airport. So the whole thing about it is that the public can watch, and they do their race in full different heats.
So I don't mean to belabor this point, but like, they're in the air, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then they approach a start line, and then
It's a flying start, and as Curtis mentioned, there's pylons. They do certain.
it sounds pretty crazy. Sounds pretty interesting.
That's why I'm wondering how close I want to be to the action.
Yeah. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to accept this as information.
I'll make a
Thanks,
motion to
Chris.
accept the air races as information.
Motion on the floor. Anybody wishing to speak to it? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, 9.1 under new business is airside infrastructure reclassification. I'd ask Andre to shed some light on this.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to the airport manager on this one.
Okay.
Back in, well, this year, 2021, there was 3 sections of road allowance that were kind of an issue inside of the airport that we finally got them closed and got them basically added into the area of the airport. We had a study done from HM Arrow with recommendation on what to do with those 3 pieces of former road allowance. So they recommend taking them and reclassifying the existing apron 3 and these 3 sections of land into taxiways. So it's been put in our budget for this upcoming year to get an engineering report and study done on what's going to be required to make those a proper taxiway. The 3 pieces that were former road allowances, they're recommended to be a private taxiway, which the cost then to make them brought up to standard is considerably less than if we actually make them a controlled area.
So from a practical point of view, what is the state now and what do we want to take it to?
So where they were before, they were public access properties as road allowance.
So people could just drive on them.
People could have access to them if they wanted to. This gives us a control, then we can keep people and for safety purposes. There's a little bit of work that will need to be done and will be identified when we get the report done. Or there's some, for apron 3, the initial part of apron 3, which is kind of an extension of taxiway alpha. There will be some lights and signages that will be required to bring it up to proper standards. And there may be some surface conditions that need to be brought up to standard as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Curtis?
I just wanted to clarify why, when you're doing this and spending that money to do it, why would we not turn apron 3 into a taxiway? Because the way I understand the difference is, you're going to? Okay, okay. I didn't see that in there.
Was that a question, Counselor?
No. The difference between private taxiway and public taxiway, why would you not just go with public taxiway?
The requirements in TP 312 5th edition that apply to taxiways would mean there being pretty good expense placed on those pieces of land to get them up to be a proper taxiway. Whereas for the use that they are right now, a private taxiway would suffice to what they needed to be.
Question?
If we're trying to promote growth in the airport by not building them properly, could hamper what kind of facility goes in. If it's somebody that has a hangar for bigger planes and we don't have the taxiways to handle it, they probably wouldn't invest here. So,
Do you want to answer that, Andre?
I can add to that. One of the parcels that we closed is not wide enough to meet the TP 312 guidelines for a taxiway. But if we make it a private taxiway, it'll meet those guidelines. I believe it is essentially within an area that is leased by one company. So the amount of air traffic on that taxiway will be pretty minimal and only one user. So that's why the one is definitely a private taxiway. One of the second one is questionable. When they come out, they will have to survey it to determine if it'll meet the requirements of a public. And the third one will be a public taxiway.
Councillor Langton?
Yeah, just, can I get clarification? I think you said private versus controlled. Is that how you define them when you said?
It's one, being that it's private, they don't have to get access through flood services to operate on them. Whereas say a normal taxiway, they actually have to get access through flood services.
Okay. And then what kind of, so then a little bit off of what we're talking about is what does that do for the future, just so I understand having a controlled versus a private taxiway? Is it a big difference on what we can bring in through there at all, or is it pretty similar, or it's super far in the future?
That wouldn't have a whole lot to do with what the development that can happen around those areas. So for when it comes to taxiways, they're all done off of pavement load rating. So the two of the areas would need some significant work to get up to what our designed aircraft is. The third one should pretty much meet our designed aircraft right now.
Thanks, Steve.
And that's your question. Councillor Prestige?
I'm looking at the picture figure 3. So it's page 9. And you have taxiway A between apron 1 and taxiway G. That one section that taxiway E intersects. that one has a very low load rating. Or on the picture, you can see it's a darker, almost black color. Is that gonna be private taxiway, or is that going to be public? Because to me, that makes sense, that being public.
Through the chair, taxiway E will definitely be a private one.
Yeah,
And then F, that's the one where they will have to come out, do some surveying to determine the widths. And at that time, it'll also determine if that taxiway needs surface upgrades.
okay,
We do know there's part of apron 3, which runs across all those taxiways, that the PL rating is low, that will have to be upgraded. And odds are we would upgrade both those pieces at the same time.
so that is in the future,
That is correct.
but for now, that's gonna be private taxiway then. And the part from apron 1 over to taxiway F,
Sorry.
the piece of taxiway that comes from apron 1 over to taxiway F, the dark black color. That's gonna be
They call that
upgraded.
apron 3.
Yeah, I'm
Or no,
looking
it's
at,
apron 3.
but I'm looking at figure 3, the picture,
Yeah.
if that is gonna get upgraded.
That's correct. That's the part of apron 3 that has a low PL rating that needs to be upgraded.
But is that gonna get changed to private taxiway?
Nope, apron 3 will become taxiway A.
Okay,
I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead.
What is the intent of taxiway alpha in the future? Do we have a goal, or is there just to maintain the standard at this time until development occurs? Is that kind of the idea?
Through the chair, essentially, yes, to upgrade it, maintain it, and for future development, it'll be ready to go.
And so just to be clear, the $50,000, that's just for engineering. Any other questions for administration on this item? Seeing none, if I could ask for a motion to accept the RFD as information. Thanks, Mr. Prestich.
make a motion that the Airport Advisory Committee accept the RFD as information.
Motion on the table. Anybody wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're on to our last item then. That's item 9.2, the Airport Master Plan. And I would again turn it over to administration to lead us through this.
Mr. Chairman, chair members, in 2014, Woodlands County undertook an airport master plan. In 2020, it was updated. WSP was chosen to undertake the update. We did put out an RFP. I think we had 4 bids submitted or 4 proposals. WSP came out on top. Areas that were reviewed were the socio-economic analysis of the airport facility, airport development opportunities, the stormwater management plan. That was that was in the 2014, so that was reviewed. Fixed versus rotary wing conflicts, ownership options, airport approach lands, certification, review, and marketing plans. After the plan was presented to the Airport Advisory Committee, there was a request to have a few other items reviewed, resulting in an addendum added to the Airport Master Plan. When the Airport Master Plan was undertaken or the review, a number of stakeholders were interviewed, such as tenants at the airport, stakeholders, as in local governments. There were users of the airport, charters, NAVCAN was interviewed, so they took all that information together. Essentially, the socio-economic analysis identified that the airport contributes to 173 full-time equivalent jobs. GDP of about $13.5 million. The airport development identified that fuel is an issue at our airport, which is something we've been working on for a couple of years. I think we are getting close to that. Advancing land development opportunities, medium-term, safe high traffic, air-side routes, and that is the apron 3 that we've discussed. The stormwater management plan, they just simply reviewed the 2014 plan, confirmed the outcome of that, the value of rectifying the storm runoff is in the neighborhood of $6 million. Fixed versus rotary wing conflicts, that was part of the addendum that was reviewed again, and it was identified that in the past there may have been some issues or conflicts between the two, but over the last number of years there have not. And that was attributed to poor airmanship when it did take place. Ownership options. The option that was settled on was essentially a commission that would look at partners such as Woodlands County, Town of Whitecourt, possibly Fox Creek, MD Greenview. There's been some preliminary discussions, but the bulk of this undertaking will probably happen in 2022. Airport approach lands in the 2022 budget. Administration has budgeted to commence the process of protecting the approach lands. Our planning development department will be undertaking that task. It's expected to take a few years, 6 to 8 years to complete. Certification review, one of the things requested was whether decertification should be looked at, but it was determined that there would be no value in decertifying, and it would make the difficult to get recertified if certification was allowed to wane. Marketing plans, a number of ideas have been tossed around. We have undertaken through administration a couple items such as the 2023 COPA, identifying things like the Reno. We are advertising in some aviation magazines, so we are trying to get the word out. 2022, the airport should have its own website that will be linked to Woodlands County Airport, or sorry, Woodlands County website. We'll also reach out to our partners to get a link on their websites. And for some that were on the committee prior, up to 2019, there was scheduled air transportation at the local airport, but 2019, the operator lost a contract for air ambulance, which subsidized their passenger flights. They reduced their number of flights, stopped flying, and then COVID hit and the airport numbers went down totally. So there was some interest just prior to COVID hitting of another company taking over, but since COVID, that has not produced anything. There is an executive summary in the airport master plan. The airport master plan is a fair-sized document. Can't remember how many, 200 pages, I think, in there. the 2014 forms part of the updated master plan. So to save a lot of reading, the executive report and the addendum are the two key areas to focus in on if you want a snapshot of that. Any questions?
Go ahead, Mr. McGee.
Oh, thank you. You mentioned about a commission. In what way? Because if we change the operation of the airport from what it is now to a commission, that changes funding. Are you talking about a commission authority or leave it as it is, or are you talking about a different type of commission?
Through the chair, we are looking at essentially partnerships, equal partnerships at the airport that would change the funding, that would change the full ownership of CYZU.
That's a fairly significant change, right?
It is.
More to come.
More to come.
I have a question, but I'll open up if anybody else had one. So rolling the clock back to when Mr. Lepushinsky and I sat on that original committee, the direction given to the contractor that came up with the first edition of the master plan was to pull the interested parties and come up with asks. You know, what did people want to see out of the airport? And the two high priority ones were lands to be developed. People wanted to be able to purchase lots to build hangars, et cetera, and potentially have business opportunities out of there. And the other one was what everybody thought was kind of the easy one, and that was to have some sort of card lock fuel system. And it's 2021, and that's still in the works, is it? The card lock fuel system?
Mr. Chairman, that is still in the works. There's a couple issues that are holding it back, but as I mentioned, hopefully we're getting to the point where we can go out for proposals on getting fuel back at the airport. And it would be essentially a credit card operated self-serve.
So do you see, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is that something in 2022 that this committee would be looking at?
I would say definitely sometime in 2022 that will be coming forward. I should also point out, since you mentioned about ownership of the airport, lands at the airport, one of the things identified in the master plan update was not selling land within the airport. Selling land, you lose control of your airport. That's one of the recommendations.
Further to that, and again, you know, I'm kind of late to the party, if you will. Is that a standard practice at airports of similar size, that the lots are not sold, they're leased?
Mr. Chairman, the bulk of airports lease land. There are some that do have private property, but there's not a lot of those. I know there is one airport south in Alberta that the municipality sold it to an interested party, and they are looking at selling lots off. But generally, they're leased.
Any other questions for Andreas?
More of a comment. I think if you identify what you're looking for, that's gonna identify if you wanna sell or lease. Because if you're looking for private, you're not gonna get a lot of guys that are gonna be able to afford to lease and stand a hangar, as opposed to being able to buy and stand a hangar. If you're looking purely to go industrial, lease is the way to go. So if you don't put a fair mix in there, when one suffers, so does the other, right?
Mm-hmm. So do you know, were the stakeholders engaged on that process to go from sale to lease?
I don't know if that was one of the questions they asked. That was just something the consultant observed.
Okay, and just again for me, and perhaps for the rest of the committee, so currently, if you want to have access to a lot to build a hangar, your only option right now is to lease that lot.
Currently, there are some lots available for lease. There are private lots that are vacant. I know one lot just sold in the month. It was a private deal. So there are some vacant private lots.
And those, is that kind of a grandfathered thing where they were owned by somebody and they're just vacant and so title hasn't transferred because they were owned?
Transferred to the county
Yeah.
through Cherry. In order for that to happen, the county would have to purchase those lots off those private owners.
So the bulk of the inventory is only available for lease.
I think there are, I'm gonna say 6, 7 private lots. And I believe there's a possibility of up to 6, 8 lots that can be leased. The last subdivision that was built by the county, we did not specify or survey out the lots. It was left the way it is so that if we have somebody comes in and wants 3 acres lot, we can do that, or if they want 1 acre, we can do that.
To lease. Right. Question,
To
Chris?
put it in context, when they sold those lots, they were $30,000. And the one that just sold, because you can't buy any more land out there, sold for about $180,000. Because nobody wants to lease land.
Mhm.
Well, you can't. How do you go to a bank as a private individual and say, I want to stand hanger? The bank will laugh at you. You don't own the land.
Comment, Mr. McGee?
Just the point, some of the properties that have been sold, there's no hangers on them. So $30,000, nobody built a hanger. Mr. Bowl built a hanger and Darcy Cornock built a hanger and that was it. So we sold them, but nobody built anything. Except for those 2. So it's a challenge. Maybe a caveat should have been put in there, we have to build within 2 years, something like that. So if we go and sell, we have to realize that speculation might ensue. Right? And that's why you've gone from 30 to 180, which makes it, as Curtis has said, very expensive to build. Yeah.
But just in retrospect, to try and build a hangar at the County of Woodlands Airport, to follow their bylaws, by the time you're done, you'd have basically a garage. You have to have a 30-foot setback in the front, you have to have a 30-foot setback in the back. You can't even put a door on it big enough to bring an airplane in. That's why they had an issue with Mr. Bull. That's what it came down to. They're bringing in what they've set for their industrial area into the airport.
Okay, well, what I'm hearing is that there's some unknowns around the lease purchase concept that we currently have, and it's not really relevant to this RFP, but I think it's something for discussion in the future. Mr. Prestich?
I can't see why we couldn't offer both. You either buy it or lease it. If it's total control you want, you're not gonna get any developers coming out to build stuff. It's just not gonna work.
One another big discussion around this, and as in this latest plan, was the lease rates, right? Some of us, negotiated land lease rates, and there was a increase a couple of years ago for the airport property, right? And that's something that we cannot lose sight here, and it was a to-do item there regarding mill rates and comparison of the lease rates. And I think a proposal went through, correct me if I'm wrong, to open up and look at the land lease rates at the Woodlands County Airport. So just FYI on there, because it's, I don't know how many folks have read this, but it's mentioned quite a bit, and it was a big topic with the stakeholders that were interviewed.
So just to clear that, what was a big topic with this?
Well, the rate, the land lease rates.
Okay, the cost.
That has to be looked at, because I don't think that airport's not enticing anyone with the present rate, so.
Okay. Andre?
Just add for the committee's information, the lease rates at CYZU are $2.75 per square meter, which I believe is comparable to, I think it's.
Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie. Otherwise, we're higher than everyone else in Alberta.
So am I getting a sense from the committee that committee would like to review that portion of the master plan? Comment?
As I mentioned, that is one of the RFPs that will be coming back to the committee.
Okay. Well, that being said, any other questions with respect to the master plan as presented? If there are none, then I'd ask for a motion to accept the master plan as information. Ms. Baker.
There you go. I can make a motion to accept as information.
I'm not sure if you all heard that. What we need you to do is read the RFP.
Yeah. I can make a motion that the Airport Advisory Committee accepts the RFD and the 2020 Airport Master Plan as information.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Anybody wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right. Next meeting, monthly, quarterly?
Through Chair, in terms of reference, our 4 meetings per month. I'm anticipating. Sorry, 4 meetings per year. I'm anticipating we will probably be proposing one for February, but that'll all depend on a couple of items, so we will send that out when we have.
Okay, so basically call the chair then?
Is it?
Okay. All right. If anything else, you guys? Question?
I would like to put myself forward to look at trying to add the stole races or stole competition to the air races.
Right,
And
thank
see if
you.
there's any interest in that.
Yeah, okay, so in the form of a motion then?
Isn't that what I said? No?
I think that's what you said, yeah. Did you capture that, you guys? No? Okay. Just, Andrea, shed some light on that first.
Through Chair, perhaps before doing that, we'll touch base with the organizer of the
Okay.
air races.
Yeah, fair.
See if they're favorable. If they are, then we can inform Curtis.
Yeah, because it depends on the time frame too, if they have any openings in there to do the stoles. Okay? Cool.
Okay, so what we want to capture is that you're going to contact the organizers of the air race and see if there's an opportunity to incorporate stool races into it. Like to see that too. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment. Mr. Mayor?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, you guys.